the velocity of the increase to the Prophet ﷺ was not nearly enough in terms of what he was thinking about, but the numbers were still increasing. So they felt that they weren't getting anywhere, so they started to begin to negotiate with Abu Talib, trying to get Abu Talib to lift his hand, meaning to take away his support from the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Talib almost did, but didn't really. So when they felt that it was a dead end with Abu Talib, and they had left off with Abu Talib in a really, really bad note. The last time they spoke to him, it got really ugly. There was speak of war. There was speak of death and blood. So they couldn't go back and speak to Abu Talib again. So they begin to negotiate with the Prophet ﷺ. And this is a very interesting period during his life, ﷺ, because when you hear the offers they come forward with, what they have to say, you start questioning, is this guy actually telling the story correctly? He doesn't seem to be the weaker party in this ordeal. It sounds the way that they're negotiating what they're asking for, that somehow he has the upper hand, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he actually did in many ways. Maybe it wasn't apparent to him at the time, alayhi salatu wasalam, or to the Sahaba, and sometimes not even to us now, but he did. And the reason is very simple. If you stand by al-haq, you always have the upper hand. Just by the mere fact that you're standing by what is right, that you are doing the right thing, saying the right thing, standing by that which is righteous, you have the upper hand. Even if your numbers are low and you don't have a big army or a lot of people to support you, not enough money, you still have the upper hand because you're standing by al-haq, and there's nothing more divine than that. Never was, never will be. But sometimes you can't see it. So they come to negotiate with him, alayhi salatu wasalam. So what happens is the elders of Quraysh all gather together, around 8 or 9 of them. And I'm talking the big names, I'm talking the big guns. Walid ibn Mughira, Al-As ibn Wa'il, Abu Sufyan, Sakhr ibn Harb, Abu al-Hakam ibn Hisham. All these people come together and start saying, we have to find a way to end this. Let's one of us go and negotiate with him directly. Who are they going to choose? They're going to choose the most respected person amongst them. Abu al-Walid Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, one of the elders and leaders of Quraysh, a very elderly man in his 90s. Very well respected all across the region. So they say, can you go? And can you negotiate with the Prophet ﷺ, make some offers? So he says yes. He walks towards the Prophet ﷺ. This is the setting. They stand far away. The Prophet ﷺ can see them, but he can't hear them. That's how far they were, just far enough. And he sees Abu al-Walid Utbah ibn Rabi'ah coming towards him. And he comes and he sits with the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he welcomes him. He sits. And he begins to speak. فَقَالَ يَا ابْنَ أَخِي إنك حيث تعلم منا في العشيرة والنسب والحسب. You know where you stand regarding all of us in terms of your background, your heritage, your lineage, the respect that we all have for you. You are the grandson of Abd al-Muttalib. That's what he's trying to allude to. وإنك جئتنا وجئت قومك بما لم يأتي به أحد قبلك. And you have came to us with something that is new, that no one has done before you. فسفهت أحلامنا وشتمت آلهتنا وكفرت من مضى من آبائنا. So you came to us and you have taken our way of life and you have made it look horrible, and you have taken our religion and you've broken it down to something that is worthless, and you're saying that our parents before us who lived the same way were wrong. And this is the point that they could never get over, by the way. Just put a little mental pin in it. That point, they couldn't get over that point. Happens a lot, and I'll give you examples later of how it can happen to us as well. And it does happen to us all the time. وإني أعرض عليك أمورا لعلك تقبل بعضها. And I'm going to make some offers to you, and I hope you'll at least maybe accept 1 or 2 of these offers. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم قل يا أبا الوليد أسمع. Go ahead, Abu al-Walid, say what you want, I am listening. And he begins. He begins to say the most ridiculous things that could be said to Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The most ridiculous things. Someone who is speaking to Jibreel, someone who has explained to him the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, beginning from Adam, moving down to Ibrahim and Ismail and Ishaq and Yaqub and Asbat and Musa and Isa. All these people, same message he's carrying. He's the last one of all. And some guy is telling him something that goes similar to the follows. He goes, إن كان ما تريد ملكا ملكناك علينا. If it's sovereignty that you want, we will make you our king. وإن كان جاها تريد سودناك علينا حتى لا نقطع أمرا إلا بك. And if it's a status that you're looking for, then we will make sure that you become the leader of Dar al-Nadwa. We will not make a decision unless it goes through you first. وإن كان مالا تريد جمعنا لك من أموالنا حتى صرت أغنانا. And if it's money you're after, then we will gather amongst ourselves more money than we all have individually, so that you have more money than all of us. You'll be the richest of the rich. He's listening to this, alayhi salatu wasalam. What garbage? What are you talking about? Money and status, and what are you doing? But he's listening, alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahi, they are ridiculous offers. They are ridiculous. They make no sense at all. If it were me, I would not have given him the time of the day to make these silly and ridiculous offers. But he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. He listened to the guy. He listened to him. We have to listen to people. We have to listen. No matter how ridiculous what they say may seem to us, you need to listen. It's not about whether you agree with it or how far away your way of thought is from what is being said. It doesn't matter. You need to listen. Sometimes what's being said is so beyond who you are and what you believe in and what you've dedicated your life for, that you feel that it is physically impossible to sit down and listen. Remember the Prophet ﷺ, as they are telling him, وإن كان نساء تريد زوجناك من كل قبيلة أجملهن. He's telling him, if you want women, if you want to get married, if it's women that you, what are you doing? Alayhi salatu wasalam is carrying the Quran. He's speaking to Jibreel, and you're telling him money and status and women and sovereignty. And وإن كان, so you see how even more ridiculous it's going to be. وإن كان رئيا بك أو مرضا بك دفعنا لك الأموال حتى نأتيك بأطباء الأرض يداوونك. And if you are sick, if you have some disease of some sort, they're telling him, if you're insane, if you have some mental disease, or you're seeing things or hearing things, or you're illusional or delusional, we'll pay money and bring doctors to take care of you. He's listening, alayhi salatu wasalam, as he goes on and on with these ridiculous offers. And then he finishes. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, just to be extra polite, because politeness is a part of how he lived, alayhi salatu wasalam. Sometimes we forget that. He's extremely polite, very high dhawq, alayhi salatu wasalam. Very, very high. Higher than anything I've ever seen in my life. And the examples are endless. فَقَالَ أَفَرَغْتَ يَا أَبَا الْوَلِيدِ. Are you done? Are you finished? Not in a rude way, but are you finished your offers? Or I don't want to interrupt you. Basically, he's saying. فَقَالَ نَعْمْ فَرَغْتَ فَقَالَ أَتَسْمَعُ مِنِّي. Can I respond, or can I answer, tell you what? Or are you just going to come and say this and leave? فَقَالَ أَسْمَعُ مِنْكَ. I'll listen, I'll hear what you have to say. You want people to listen to you, you have to listen to them first. It's a very, very simple law of the universe. It goes for everybody. If you're a father, you're a teacher, you're a spouse, you're a friend, or even you're a sheikh. Makes no difference. If you don't listen, people will not listen. As simple as that. We have made our communications in life one way. Everything has to be a hierarchy of some sort. And it's not. The Prophet ﷺ did not function like that during his life with the Sahaba. And that is not how the world actually, that's not how things flourish and actually see success. You'll see many examples. So the Prophet ﷺ, what do you think his answer is going to be? He just says the following. He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حميم. تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم. كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون بشيرا ونذيرا فأعرض أكثرهم فهم لا يسمعون وقالوا قلوبنا في أكنة مما تدعونا إليه وفي آذاننا وقر ومن بيننا وبينك حجاب فاعمل إننا عاملون قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فاستقيموا إليه واستغفروه وويل للمشركين الذين لا يؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم أجر غير ممنون قل أئنكم لتكفرون بالذي خلق الأرض في يومين وتجعلون له له أندادا ذلك رب العالمين وجعل فيها رواسي من فوقها وبارك فيها وقدر فيها أقواتها في 4 أيام سواء للسائلين ثم استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان فقال لها وللأرض ائتيا طوعا أو كرها قالتا أتينا طائعين فقضاهن 7 سماوات في يومين وأوحى في كل سماء أمرها وزينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وحفظا ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم فإن أعرضوا فقل أنذرتكم صاعقة مثل صاعقة عاد وثمود. And at that point, this is the beginning of Surah Fussilat, by the way. Abu al-Walid, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, jumps off his feet, takes his hand and puts it on the face of the Prophet ﷺ, on his mouth, saying, ناشدتك الله والرحم ناشدتك الله والرحم يا أبا القاسم ناشدتك بالله والرحم. I swear to, I ask you by the name of Allah and whatever relations of kinship that we have because we're related. I ask you by Allah and our relationship to please stop. To please stop. And then he noticed how ridiculous he looked. See, the last verse says, if they refuse all of this, please go and read the first page of Surah Fussilat. Take a standard translation. You don't need me to explain things to you. It's very clear. It's self-explanatory. At the end of it, ayah number 13, it says, if they refuse, then tell them, I warn you, from a punishment like the punishment that came to Ad with Thamud. Apparently when he said it, alayhi salatu wasalam, recited, it was so powerful. It was so meaningful. His heart was in it. That he had a 90-year-old man have an emotional reaction to it. And when he noticed that he was overreacting, he was panicking with his hand on the Prophet ﷺ's mouth, asking him, swearing, please, I beg you enough, I beg you no more. He became very embarrassed. So he took his hand down and he sat. Feeling very embarrassed, feeling فقال أكمل يا أبا القاسم. Please, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Continue. So the Prophet ﷺ would continue to read Surah Fussilat until there's a sajda. And once he made the sajda, ﷺ, he got up to continue to read. Abu Walid waited for him to make the sajda and he ran. And he left. Apparently when he read the Quran, ﷺ, it was more than just the letters and the tajweed. He actually felt what he was saying. He actually meant it. You know, they say back in the day, if you talk to any of your parents about modern art and music, and back in the day, they'll say back in the day they used to sing from their hearts. You'll find, you must have an older person in your family who tells you that. But the older ages, Kulthum and those people. And what they do now is all garbage, because back then they said these things from their hearts. You felt it. Apparently when he read the Quran, it also came from his heart. He read it with feelings. He felt it. It transmitted and transferred to the person in front of him, and he moved Utbah ibn Rabi'ah. He scared him just by the words. He said he was sitting there, ﷺ, completely silent. I was making he wasn't. He just sat there and said, just read the Quran. He was able to provoke a reaction in him. We don't do that anymore. We don't read the Quran like that. We don't read it. We don't absorb it. It doesn't enter the heart. It's sad, because when you finally, inshallah, you'll come to, when you finally realize the depth and the beauty of these words, you start to actually see it for what it is, you'll regret the time that you spent in your life doing anything else. And you will hope with all your heart that others could feel the same way you do towards the words that you are reciting and reading. And it's the biggest loss in my mind, in my heart, when I see people who don't connect with the Quran. It kills me. I don't know what to do. How do I fix that for you? Because we're all masakeen, but you're an especially miskeen if you don't enjoy it. If it doesn't mean something to you, if you don't listen to it. And alayhi salatu wasalam just said those words, and Utbah, he was 90 years old, an old man, but couldn't help it. Unfortunately, we don't have evidence that he accepted Islam. But he goes back, he leaves the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam making sujood, and he leaves. And he goes back, and they look at him, and Abu Sufyan looks at Abu Jahl. And he says, لَقَدْ عَادَ إِلَيْكُمْ أَبُو الْوَلِيدِ بِغَيْرِ الْوَجْهِ الَّذِي ذَهَبَ بِهِ. He has come back to you, Abu al-Walid, with a different face. He left with one face, and this is a different person coming back. The guy's texture had changed. He was a bit more pale when he came back. فَقَالَ مَا الْخَبَرْ يَا أَبَا الْوَلِيدِ. What happened? فقال, listen to what he has to say. He didn't accept Islam, unfortunately. As far as we know. We don't know. Maybe he did. Probably didn't. But the words that he said to them were important. He said, يا معشر قريش اسمعوني وأطيعوني اليوم وعصوني بعدها أعطوني منكم هذه. I want you to listen to me and obey me. Just this once and never obey me again. Just give me this one thing from you, just one thing. إني سمعت منه كلاما ليس بقول الكهنة ولا السحرة ولا الشعراء. I have heard from him things. This is not the work of wizards. This is not the work of poets. This is not the work of anything that I've ever encountered in my life. وَإِنَّهُ سَيَكُونُ لِكَلَامِهِ نَبَأٌ عَظِيمٌ. And what he is saying is going to reach very far places. It is going to turn into something great one day. فَخَلُّوا بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ مَا يُرِيدُ. Allow him to do whatever it is he wants to do. فَإِنَّهُ إِنْ جَابَهَ بِهِ الْعَرَبُ فَقَتَلُوهُ كُفِيتُمُوهُ بِغَيْرِكُمْ. If he takes this and he goes to the Arabs, and the Arabs refuse him and kill him, then they get rid of him for you. وَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ فَمُلْكُهُ مُلْكُكُمْ وَعِزُّهُ عِزُّكُمْ. And if he goes to Arabs with this and he prospers and he is successful, then his sovereignty is yours and his name and status is yours. You're from the same, you're all Quraysh. This is what he thought. Just let him do what he wants to do. He has something special. I don't know what it is, but what he is saying is special. I've heard it all. I'm 90, I've heard it all. I've never heard anything like this. You need to let him speak. All he ever wanted, never forget that in the seerah. All he was looking for was just freedom of speech. Just when, the basic freedoms, first, second, third amendment, I don't know which one it is. First amendment. Just to say, he just wants to say what he wants to say. Just to listen to him. And they said, no, you can't speak. They deprived him from the right of explaining what he wants to explain. So they said, the people who stood there, فَقَالُوا سَحَرَكَ يَا أَبَا الْوَلِيدِ. He used his magic on you. خَرُفَ أَبُو الْوَلِيدِ. Or you've lost your mind. You're too old. Oh, so you're old. You have no, you're losing your mind. That's why you're saying these things. They refused. But this is the shahada of Utbah ibn Rabi'ah after he had this encounter with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So what do they do after that? So they meet. All 7 of them again, excluding this time Abu al-Walid Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, as all bigots and do. Whenever you don't agree with them, they exclude you and they have a different meeting because they want people who agree with them and that's it. So they meet again and they say, this time we call him. We call the Prophet ﷺ to us and we speak to Muhammad ourselves. So they sent to him saying, Ya Muhammad, will you please come? And I can only imagine the pressure he was under ﷺ coming to a meeting like this. You're entering a room where all your enemies exist. These are the reasons that things aren't working out. It's these people here. ﷺ would spend a lot of time trying to do da'wah to them. I'll give you examples of that inshallah to come. He would spend a lot of time speaking to these leaders, trying to get something out of them, trying to get them to listen, sometimes more than he should. And the Quran would come and correct him. So he's going to speak to the leaders. So he enters, and they make similar offers. They started saying similar things. You did this, and how about, we figure out some way to work it out or something. We can offer you money or whatever it is you need. If you're sick, if you're tired, if you're... فيقول عليه الصلاة والسلام ما جئت لآخذ أموالكم. I didn't come with this so I can take your money. ولا لأسود فيكم. Nor did I do this so that I would become with higher status. ولا أطلب الملك فيكم. Nor am I asking to be king. وليس بي من بأس وليس بي من رئي. I am not sick and there's nothing wrong with me. وإنما أتيتكم بالذي بعثني الله به. I have come to you with that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me. وإنما أنا لكم بشير ونذير. And all I am to you is someone who is going to give you the glad tidings of a great future, or someone who will warn you of what will come if you don't listen. فإن أخذتموه مني وقبلتموه كان حظكم من الدنيا والآخرة. If you accept what I tell you, then that will be the best thing you've ever done for yourselves in dunya and akhirah. وإن لم تقبلوه مني. And if you refuse it, لأبقين عليه حتى تنفرد سالفتي. And if you refuse it, I will keep on doing this until I die. Until I will keep on pushing for this until the last day of my life. So it didn't work out. He left So a few people come after him. First two people were Walid ibn Mughira and Mikraz ibn Hafs. They come to him, two of the leaders. And they say, Ya Muhammad, just look, your Quran has a couple of stuff that we don't like. Do you think you can maybe make some adjustments to it? Just take out the part where you talk about the idols. You know, Muhammad, Lat, wal Uzza, and Manat, they're very important to us. They're important to all the tribes. Just take that part out. Everything else is awesome. We're totally on it with you. Salat al-Rahim, good. Sidq, good. What else? It'am al-Miskeen, good. We're all with that. But can you just take out that part? وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ Surah Yunus was revealed. قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا. And once you recite upon them our clear verses of what Islam actually is, those who don't believe that they will ever meet their Lord will say, "Iti bi Qur'anin ghayri hadha." Oh, badil. Can you change the Quran or make some adjustments or get another one? قُلْ مَا يَكُونُ لِي أَنْ أُبَدِّلَهُ مِنْ تِلْقَاءِ نَفْسِي. Tell them it wasn't my choice. You see, they're acting as if the Prophet ﷺ made it all up. And you're saying, they're coming and saying, yeah, we know you made this up. How about you just, play ball? The Prophet ﷺ is saying, you need to understand that I didn't do any of this. This is what Allah is teaching. You need to listen. But of course that way. So they leave him. So his cousin, Atika bint Abdul Muttalib, who's the Prophet ﷺ's aunt, her son is Abdullah ibn Abi Umayyah. So he's the Prophet ﷺ's first cousin. So he comes to him and he starts saying, Ya Rasulullah, look, come back. Ya Muhammad, come back. You didn't believe that he was Rasulullah. So, Ya Muhammad, come back. We have a few more things we want to talk about. So the Prophet ﷺ comes back. Who's weaker here? Who has the weaker hand here? Is it the Prophet ﷺ? Or is it the people who are, they're trying to get something, they can't get anything? I have a question for you. Why didn't he accept sovereignty? He was offered on 3 occasions. I brought up 2. There's another one. He was offered to become king. The king of Mecca. Never before in history was there a king of Mecca. The word king was never used regarding the governance of the city of Mecca ever. Or Quraysh. Quraysh, there was never a mulk in them until after Islam. Mulk Quraysh didn't exist. There's no malik. So the Prophet ﷺ is being offered, here, become king. Because I always thought, well, if he became king, that would probably make things easier. Then he could, basically grant himself and all the Muslims the rights. He could, silence those non-Muslims. And to be honest, the Seerah story would have been very different. There would be no need to go to Medina to make that immigration and for there to be Badr and Uhud and all this stuff. Once he's king, he can control. He can get rid of all the people who are, all the enemies. They were rid of anyways. Abu Jahl died in Badr, and he got rid of them anyways. Might as well just do it as king. Why? Why not? What was the reason for that? It's actually a pretty straightforward one. See, the ends don't justify the means, right? Or do they? Ever heard of that? The end justifies the mean? That's a huge, huge ethical problem. Huge. The ends never justify the mean, ever. I don't care what the end is. I don't care how beautiful a picture you can draw of the universe. The means have to be just as beautiful. If the means mean that at one point, any point, you have to somehow compromise your morals or your ethics or do things in it or play dirty, then what you're doing is no different than what your enemies are doing, and everyone is equal. Now, what I just said is actually not something that everybody agrees to. Believe it or not, there are many Muslims who don't agree to this. In many examples, in many situations, historically and today, who believe that there are ends that are powerful enough and important enough that we can compromise the means and play dirty and do things. No, never. Never. This is the most important point of his entire life. He never played dirty, ever. He was one of the most important politicians of the 7th century, of the 7th Miladi century. Never once did he play dirty, not once. Not once. And he paid for that. He paid for that from his pockets, financially, socially. He paid with his blood, with his family, with his life. Not once did he ever play dirty. He could have easily said, I'll be the king, and then I'll change everything. No, that's not right. That's not right. You force people to do that. You don't force people to do things. People have to make choices on their own. You can't accept it for now and then change what you want to do later. Just be, well, the means is Islam being spread. And you can actually save so many Muslims from dying in Badr and Uhud and Khandaq and Tabuk and Hunayn. Still, it's not the right way to do things. So you don't do it. And he didn't, alayhi salatu. He refused, alayhi salatu, time and time again. And I'm going to give you examples. If you think this is an extreme example, but you're going to see the examples throughout his life, alayhi salatu. Time and time again, he'll be given offers. He'll refuse them because it's just not the right thing to do. It actually exhausted the people of Quraysh. Because like, come on. Please, just give us something. Give us something. No, nothing. He gave them nothing. Only that which he is capable or you can compromise. Some things in the deen, some things are not fundamentals. We can get rid of certain issues. But others, no. Where is that in the Quran? وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. They just want you to compromise. And they'll give up everything because they don't believe in anything anyways. They have no beliefs that are important to them. They just want you. So he goes back with Abdullah ibn Abi Muwayyah. And he starts to offer him things. I'll move to the, it's not there. Doesn't matter. You know in Surah Al-Isra, towards the end of it, it says, وَقَالُوا لَن نُؤْمِنَ لَكَ حَتَّى تَفْجُرَ لَنَا مِنَ الْأَرْضِ يَنْبُوعًا أَوْ تَكُونَ لَكَ جَنَّةٌ مِنْ نَخِيلٍ وَعِنَبٍ فتفجر الأنهار خلالها تفجيرا أو تسقط السماء كما زعمت علينا كسفا أو تأتي بالله والملائكة قبيلا. And they continue to move on. They say, look, we'll believe in you, but we need you to prove things to us. Prove some things. What do you want me to prove? So the first person said, إنك تعلم أننا أفقر أهل الأرض خضرة ومطرا فكلم ربك ينزل علينا من خيرات السماء فيملأ هذه الجبال شجرا ويملأ الأودية يعني أنهارا. Talk to your Lord and have him change this Sahara that we live in. Look at the desert, there's nothing. Have him bring down rain for a couple of months. Let us see the green come from this land. Turn this land into the Garden of Eden. Let us see that. We want that. So the Prophet ﷺ answer would be, مَا بِهَذَا بَعَثَنِي. They offer him all these offers and he would answer the same thing every time. This is not what he sent me with. So they would say, then at least we want to see you. May you have a lot of wealth. You're very poor. You have nothing. Ask your Lord to give you a castle and strength and water and wells. And he would tell them, مَا بِهَذَا بَعَثَنِي. This is not what he sent me with. So they would say, أو ترقى في السماء ولن نؤمن لرقيك حتى تنزل علينا كتابا نقرأه. So they told him, okay, then may you go to the sky and Jibreel meets you somewhere in the middle and give you the Quran and bring the Quran with him down with you and then tell us that he is Jibreel and this is the Quran. They want to see it all. He would say, مَا بِهَذَا بَعَثَنِي. This is not what he sent me with. And he would ask him all these things. He goes to Isra, you'll find all the requests. And he would say, no, I can't do any of that. Then what was he sent with, alayhi salatu wasalam? It's the language. He was sent with the language. It's this miraculous book of language that will continue to live on until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That is what he was sent with, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was sent with a way of life that if we were all to follow and live by, will bring prosperity to every single community that it enters. This is what he's bringing, alayhi salatu wasalam. There is no Asa Musa. There is no Naqat Salih anymore. That's not what he brought. That's not what he offered. He never offered that, alayhi salatu wasalam. And they asked him for it and he said no. So that's not what I was sent with. It's an interesting point. It's interesting. He was asked, and the Quran documents it so that you won't say, well, that kind of makes me think. The Quran documented when they asked it. And at the end of it, قُلْ سُبْحَانَ رَبِّي هَلْ كُنْتُ إِلَّا بَشَرًا رَسُولًا. Say, subhanallah, I am only a human messenger. I can't do all this for you. وَمَا مَنَعَ النَّاسَ أَن يُؤْمِنُوا إِذْ جَاءَهُمُ الْهُدَى إِلَّا أَن قَالُوا أَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ بَشَرًا رَسُولًا. And what caused people not to believe when they were given guidance? See, that's the key word. Guidance. There's something in this. The guidance that exists within our deen, within Islam, is something that if we are to live by and follow, then really there is no loss for us. There's no way for us to ever lose. But people will say, أَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ بَشَرًا رَسُولًا. How does Allah send a prophet that's a human? They're looking for something grand. They want something that is flashy. So they come to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. How much time do I have? Do I have a bit of time left? All right. I have a little bit of time left. So that doesn't work. So they come to him with something different. They come up with this very smart way to negotiate. I don't know who thought of it, but whoever thought of it was really smart. And at that moment, like, we got it. Now we've cornered him. Let's fix this now. Let's go and end this once and for all. So they went and they were extremely excited about this moment because now they have the way to corner him and to end this whole problem. So they came to him and they said, Ya Muhammad, أخبرنا هل كان أبوك على ما أنت عليه? Was your father saying and doing the same things that you are saying? Does he have the Quran? Did he do all this? So the Prophet ﷺ said no. فقال أكان جدك على ما أنت? What about your grandfather? Your grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, the best of the best in the eyes of everyone who lived at that time. Did he do what you were doing? And they said, well, no. فقالوا فأخبرنا إذن أأنت خير أم أبوك وجدك? So tell us then, who's better, you or your grandpa? Now, if he says me, it's a loss because they're going to go and tell everybody. Did you hear what Muhammad is saying? He is saying that he is better than Abdul Muttalib. That would end any hope of anyone ever listening to him again. And if he says, no, he's better than me, he said, well, he lived the way we're living. Why can't you? There is no good answer. So what did he answer, alayhi salatu wasalam? He didn't. He didn't respond. He heard the question and he left. And they lost their minds. They lost their minds. Running after him. No, you have to answer. You need to answer. Nope, not answering. And because he knows sometimes the best response is no response at all. Because it's a question that they have, it's a complicated issue that they have just, played around with. They played with the words. That's not how it is. It's not like that. You can't say better. This is not what it's about. But for me to go into the details of this is going to be very difficult. So I'll just. Sometimes you walk down a road of a dock. This argument will never end. Ibrahim had the same problem. He goes to the king and he tells him, Rabbi alladhi yuhyi wa yumit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants life and he grants death. He created both. So this king brings in two people, kills one and says, here, I killed him. And tells the other one, you can walk away alive. So I let them live. It's this very silly way. I'm talking philosophically. You're doing something. There's no point of continuing this argument. So he leaves it. He doesn't continue to say, no, king, that's not what I meant. No, he just leaves it. قال فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب. Okay, let me play your game then. Allah brings the sun every morning from the east because it happened before you were born, so it wasn't you. So go ahead, bring it from the west if you can control everything. So he sat there quietly. Sometimes the best response is no response. But they thought they got him. They thought they got him there. Didn't work. Didn't respond, alayhi salatu wasalam. So they think more. Are you seeing how much effort they're putting into this? They're spending time all day trying to figure out how do we get him, how do we find some way to work, because even though he is outnumbered, they know that he has the upper hand because what he's saying is the truth. That's how all you have to do is just stand by the truth. There's really nothing else that's required. Just stand by it. Just continue to stand by it. No matter how scary, no matter how difficult, no matter how intimidating that is, just stand by it. It's all he ever asks you to do, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's hard sometimes, so we don't. So they come to him with another. This time, they start to compromise. The two coming and he offers, they're compromising. So they come and say, Ya Muhammad, all right, you win. Khalas, you win. How about this? We split it somewhere in the middle. We worship your Allah alone for a year, and then you do it for our asnam for a year. And we'll start with yours. We'll start with your Lord. We'll be Muslims first, all right? We don't have to be, we'll just kind of alternate. Year this, a year that. Your year and our year. You see? Give and take here. Come on, Muhammad, let's end this problem and let's find some way to... And alayhi salatu wasalam, he just laughs. What are you talking about? Again, he could have played this dirty. All right, start with my year. Starts with his year, he gets as many people Muslim as possible, and then the other year comes, no, not doing it. But that's not how it's done. And the Quran actually came and said that. You all know the surah. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدتُّمْ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. The anthem of identity and tolerance in one surah, six verses. Explain two things, two of some of the most important concepts of human existence, explained in 6 verses. Identity and tolerance. Identity being very clear. Being very, very clear. وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ. We are not the same. I worship something different than you do, and you worship something different than I do. We are not the same. But that's okay. لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. You have a religion and I have one. No problem. Ya ayyuha al-kafirun. Calling them with respect. Ayyuha is a word in Arabic that means respect. You don't say ya ayyuha and then go and say something rude. You're different than me, but I have respect for you. You have your faith, I have mine. But we're different. Sometimes if identity is too strong, we lose tolerance. And sometimes if tolerance is too strong, you use identity. But if you can get that right balance, like he did, alayhi salatu wasalam, like the surah explains, we're fine. We're different, but we can coexist. No, I will not worship your Lord. And I don't want you, based on what you explained to me, to worship mine either. Either you accept Islam fully, or we stay different in the way that we worship. He refused, alayhi salatu wasalam. So they come back again. This time is the final offer. They're exhausted and they're bankrupt. They have nothing left. And alayhi salatu wasalam just sitting there, swatting it. It's like you're watching a tennis game. You're just swatting them one after the other. Nope. None of that. I have one offer and one offer only. You will accept or you can want. There's the door. Offer another offer. Nope. But then this one came along. This offer was actually quite juicy. I like this one. They came to him and said, Ya Muhammad, قد غلبتنا. You have won. You beat us. وإنا لنؤمنن لك. We're going to accept your faith and your teachings. ولكن لا ينبغي أن يجلس سادة قريش مع عبيدهم ولا ينبغي أن يسوى بين آل إبراهيم ورعاع الناس ففرق في اجتماعنا بيننا وبينهم. We accept, but you can't have the nobles with the slaves. It just doesn't work. Where the leaders of Quraysh, the descendants of Ibrahim and Ismail, the Hebrews, just had them sit with a bunch of people who don't even know where they came from. So we'll accept Islam, but whenever we meet, just make the meetings exclusive. Meet with them. We're not saying not to meet with them. Don't say they can't be Muslims. But we can't be with them in the same place. We can't be seen in the same meeting. We can't sit down and listen to you, sitting like this, and Bilal and Suhaib and Ammar and Yasir, and then right there beside them is going to be Abu Sufyan and Abu Bukhturi and Uqba. No, that doesn't work. You're going to say Umayyah bin Khalaf al-Qurashi is going to sit with Suhaib al-Rumi. We don't even know where this guy comes from. He was a slave until yesterday. But Bilal al-Habashi is going to sit with Abu Sufyan. Right? It was over. Literally, when this offer came in, it's over. It's done. Alayhi salatu wasallam is being told, you win. Fine. We succumb. You have a better narrative. You have stronger language. You are much more fixed on your way. You're one of us, so we're happy with that. You're our son. You're our brother. Whatever you do is fine. They start to listen maybe to what Utbah ibn Rabi'ah said. So they start to think about it. Yeah, you're right. If he makes it, then we're all good. But you can't have us all sitting together. It's ridiculous. The Prophet ﷺ, by the way, he didn't say yes, obviously, but he didn't say no immediately. Not immediately. He thought about it. He's like, is there some way for me to play this that would work? Would it be okay for us just to have separate meetings? Maybe it's better for them. Maybe for Suhaib and Bilal and Ammar and all these people. It's better if they're in their own meeting. People like them. They can feel more comfortable instead of sitting with all these leaders and elders. Maybe. ولا تطرد الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ما عليك من حسابهم من شيء وما من حسابك عليهم من شيء فتطردهم فتكون من الظالمين واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا. And then all the stories of Nuh came down like rain. When they tell Nuh alayhi salam, قالوا أنؤمن لك واتبعك الأرذلون. So Nuh would say, إن حسابهم إلا على ربي لو تشعرون وما أنا بطارد المؤمنين. Another ayah, وما أنا بطارد الذين آمنوا إنهم ملاقو ربهم ولكني أراكم قوما تجهلون. I will never get rid of them. I will never remove them. I will never ask them to sit in a different place, enter from a different door, be treated differently than others just because they are. This is what he preached, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he practiced, and this is what the deen is based on. The answer was no. The answer was a big no, of course not. You accept Islam, then Suhaib is your brother, and Bilal is your brother, and Ammar is your brother, and these are all your brothers and sisters. And if you don't like that, then you can leave. There's the door. Go away. Bye-bye. You would think the Prophet ﷺ would say, all right, for the first 6 months we'll do that. And then he'll teach them, open their hearts. No, we enter this correctly from the beginning or we don't enter this at all. Are you understanding that? Either we do this right from day one, from the first moment, or we don't do it at all. He proved that he wasn't proud, alayhi salatu wasalam, because later on after Hunayn, when they accepted Islam the way he wanted to accept, he gave them all the money, correct or not? He just gave them money when they accepted Islam. As much as he had. He went home with nothing. Because he doesn't care about money. They understood it wrong. It has nothing to do with money or status or none of that. It's actually you understanding that when you say La ilaha illallah, that everyone is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equal servants. And whatever advantage or leverage you have over others is just a gift Allah gave you that you're going to use to serve them with. Not to ask for them to sit somewhere else or to be removed. This was the offer he was given, alayhi salatu wasalam. And I always thought, the seerah would have been so different. Maybe he would have lived long enough, alayhi salatu wasalam, to see Islam spread everywhere if he just taken that offer, but it was wrong. So it doesn't matter. So there's no point of me even saying any of this stuff. Because it was wrong. To think that way was wrong. He didn't think that way, alayhi salatu wasalam. He just wasn't sure. Should I say no right away? Because it's a pretty good offer. Just an issue of separation, maybe a little bit of racism, maybe a lot of racism. Imagine he didn't do that, alayhi salatu wasalam. Think how much racism we have within Muslim communities today. Think about it. Right now, think about it. How much racism, sexism, tribalism, nationalism exists amongst Muslims today. Now imagine if he accepted that at the beginning. This is what we're stuck with when he never compromised that one thing ever. Never, not once. He never accepted for that being an option. Let me get later on, many years later. Many years later. Abu Sufyan walks by Suhaib and Bilal and Ammar. He hadn't accepted Islam yet, but this is in Medina. So Suhaib says, or Ammar, we don't know, Wallahi ma a'malat suyuf al-muslimina fi riqabi a'da'illahi ma'amalaha. Unfortunately, not all the enemies of Allah were taken out when they should have been. They're just saying it so he can hear. So Abu Bakr was upset. فقال ما ينبغي أن يكلم سيد قريش هكذا. Abu Bakr said, you shouldn't be speaking to the leader of Quraysh like that. So he goes to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. He says, يا رسول الله قالوا كذا وكذا عن أبي سفيان. So the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام's answer was the following. قال يا أبا بكر لعلك أغضبتهم. Maybe did you upset them when you objected to this? فقال لا أدري. قال لعلك أغضبتهم أن تكون أغضبتهم فقد أغضبت الله. If you had said something that bothered them, Suhaib and Bilal and Ammar, when they said that, then may I tell you that you have upset Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يقول أبو بكر فعدت إليهم أجري. I went running to them. فقلت يا إخوتي أغضبتكم. Oh my brothers, did I upset you when I said that? فقالوا لا. فقال الحمد لله. I will never say that again. It was just a concept, small concept. But suddenly, Abu Sufyan, after 20 years of fighting us, you're going to give status over these people? They can say whatever they want. They can make whatever mistakes they want. They've earned it at this point. Because he never compromised, alayhi salatu wasalam. To me, that's probably the most beautiful part of this whole negotiation period. is when he was offered full submission of everyone in Mecca. Everyone was going to accept Islam, because once Al-Walid and Al-As and Abu Jahl accept, that's it, everyone's going to follow. It's done. It's a done deal. All he had to do was just say, I will segregate meetings. I will have you meet on Thursday and you guys meet on Friday. And when people sit, I'll have the elders sit up front and the rest can sit right behind them in the lines after them. No. لِيَلِنِي أُولُو النُّهَى وَأَهْلُ الْقُرْآنِ وَأُولُو الْأَحْلَامِ. The people who stand behind me are the ones who have the most knowledge, who have learned the most Quran, who have spent enough time or more time with me, learning and standing by me. It's not based on what you inherited from your fathers, how much money you have or what name, how many letters there are after your name or before it. And this is something he taught them, alayhi salatu wasalam. In the Quran, if you go to all the surahs that have the story of Nuh, you'll find that little path, because that's what Nuh was told. Nuh was told the same thing. Nuh, we're good. Just get rid of these people. مَا نَرَاكَ اتَّبَعَكَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ هُمْ أَرَاذِلُنَا بَادِيَ الرَّأْيِ. When we look at the people who follow you, ya Nuh, we see the worst of the worst. How do you want us to follow you? You're saying the right things, but look at the people who follow you. No, sorry. Doesn't work like that. Either you accept equality or you don't. Either you're anti-racist, anti-racism, anti-supremacism or not. And they weren't at that point. Those who accepted Islam later had to become. And I'm telling you, look at where we are right now. Even though he did what he did, alayhi salatu wasalam, back then. Imagine if he didn't. Just imagine if he didn't. It would have been a completely different story to tell. That kind of sun is not working anymore? Okay. So that sums up the negotiation period. To a certain extent. There are a few more points I'll bring up, inshallah, in the next couple of days. Halaqat. But that's basically what they did. When you think about it, after I told you these stories, you're under the impression that the Prophet ﷺ is sitting up higher and everyone's coming begging him for some compromise, right? That's what it sounds like. They're, please just give us anything. And he offered nothing, ﷺ. He refused to compromise any of his ideals. None of his morals, none of his ethics, none of the fundamentals of Islam. You would think and imagine that he's playing a great hand, right? You have the better hand here. So everyone's trying to get something off you because you're being, he's not. Or is he? See, I got confused when I was a kid. Did he have the upper hand? Wallah, it sounds like he has the upper hand when I'm saying, when I heard these stories as a kid. And then when I read the actual text, it seemed like he somehow had the upper hand every single time. But then you look at the rest of the stories, he didn't. He was still, alayhi salatu wasalam, being physically persecuted during these stories. His daughters were. His companions, all of them were. When these stories happened, when they were negotiating, Bilal was still under the boulder. He was still lying under the boulder saying, Ahadun Ahad, when these stories were happening. Yasir was just killed the other day, he and Sumayya, when these stories were happening. Well, it's almost a schizophrenic effect, I can't figure it out. How is this working? How is he not accepting? When you're weak, you accept a deal, you take a plea. Whatever that works to give you strength, he never did, alayhi salatu wasalam. He stood his ground. And either you accepted Islam fully, the way I teach it, or I don't need you. And I don't care. Because either it's done right or it's not done at all. And you have to admire that. You just have to admire the strength that requires. The dedication. He was relentless, alayhi salatu wasalam. You could not stop him and you could not change his mind. And you could not get him to compromise any of his ideals. It is frustrating. Sometimes, if you're on the other side, it's very frustrating. But it's also worthy of lessons. It's worthy for us to learn from him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Once he knew what was right, nothing you could say or do would ever change that. You could never get him to do something. You could never get him to compromise ever. Because he knew what he was saying and doing was the right thing. Now I ask you, do you have the same relationship with your deen? Or not? Do you know that what you're doing is the right thing? You believe in the right things, you're doing the right thing, so no one can ever get you to stop doing it. Or are you someone who will succumb to pressure if it's heavy enough? Because you're unsure. Not him, alayhi salatu wasalam, not the Sahaba. Just it seemed like he had the upper hand. And they kept on offering and he kept on refusing. And you're going to see next halaqah, they're going to go back to worse persecution. I'm going to tell some ugly stories. Because they got so frustrated with him, alayhi salatu wasalam, they lashed out and took it out physically on everybody. So bad that the Prophet ﷺ had to actually send some people outside of the continent. You're going to leave Asia and go to a different continent altogether, because that's how bad it got. You think maybe at some point he thought to himself, I should have accepted that offer. No. It was wrong. It would have been wrong. That's all you need to know. In any given example in your life, all you have to ask yourself is the following question. What's the right thing to do? Once you identify it, you're good. Don't feel bad. Don't regret anything. Don't think twice. Don't look back. Don't ask questions. Don't come for a fatwa. Just do it once you're able to identify that which is right, as he did sallallahu alayhi wasallam during this very interesting period of his life. I hope that was beneficial. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We will see you inshallah next week inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullah khair.